welcome audience, wherever you are, to this session, which was we were supposed to be doing together with Bjorn, but we don't seem to have him with us at the moment. But the session is titled Event Strategies for the New Normal. So what we're going to be talking about here is what will events look like post-pandemic. I think for the purposes of this discussion, we'll assume that, over the period of the next 18 months, 2 years, things settle down, things solve themselves, we're able to travel again, markets start to open up, and we can begin doing business again. So we're going to be really looking at this session as to what happens and how things are different from perhaps what they were before. And I think that the pandemic has been a great accelerator for many industries, including our own, of various trends. So with me today, we have Mr. Ram Krishna, who's joining us from Delhi, and we have Ashley Roberts, who is joining us from Muscat in Oman. I'm Stuart Bailey. I'm the chairman of the Hong Kong Exhibition Convention Industry Association, and I'm obviously joining you from Hong Kong. So why don't we get straight into it then? Perhaps I'll ask Mr. Ram Krishna to give us his opening thoughts on event strategies for the new normal.
Thank you, Stuart. Morning, Ashley, and morning to everybody who is online for this particular panel. Very abrupt panel discussions for the new norm in the kind of an environment where the whole industry is little backlog, right from the heavy activities we used to do a couple of years back. What we see is IMC India Mobile Congress itself, which we evolved 5 years back. Every year we had a new challenge in form of physical events hosting, or new challenge in terms of what COVID has given us. How do we get into virtual for the scale and size of the events we kind of organize it? So these challenges which we have been coming across over the years has actually made us a little more comfort on handling these COVID situations. And we had a successful event last year, which was the first year post the pandemic. And when we mean it was a successful, we saw the rise in the viewership of the conference or the event by itself in a huge number. This rise, not probably the footfall kind of rise, but we size the engagement on the conference side has increased tremendously. So that itself shows we have new opportunities, new avenues where the event organizers should concentrate on. And those are the kind, I think, which will evolve. And this evolve will be good for the whole industry. And one such evolve will be through innovations. Innovations need to come up, whether it's on a platform, whether it's on the analytics side, whether it's on the engagement angle. Those innovations needs to come up. I think we are just 1 year in this arena of the pandemic. So more innovations I see is the future of this industry. At this time, when there are more innovations, and definitely there are more opportunities for every one of us, in the sense like there are a lot of startups will come up with new innovative ideas, which should be encouraging for the industry itself. The startup, there will be a lot of technology enablement, which will happen for the cross functional issues within the event industry, which will be one more venue to look at. There will be new ways of engaging the audience, which we will discuss further in this whole discussion. I think that's one more venue we should look at. Virtual or in physical, I think things are going to innovate now. And this innovation, whoever adopts it fast, whoever takes it up, and whoever moves ahead with that is going to be the show hereafter. That's the new story.
Yeah, no, technology and innovation are definitely going to be at the heart of that. And with your experiences of your conference, India Mobile Congress, I'm sure that you're above sort of most of those probably than most of our audience as well. Ashley, let me bring you in here. Your opening thoughts about what will exhibitions look like. They've looked broadly the same for sort of 100 years or more. Are they going to be massively different post-pandemic?
Thanks, Stuart. A big question, and I wouldn't say necessarily a difficult one to ask, but certainly subjective. But from my perspective, I think where we are seeing events reopen at scale, and you look at certain parts of Europe, China to a degree, but China, it's more on a domestic level. Obviously, for given reasons, there isn't a large contingent of internationals. But you look at, nearer to this part of the world where I'm based, particularly Dubai, and Dubai has really embraced and shown the important role of what exhibitions have to play in terms of restarting the economy. Where you're looking at that is people are voting with their feet. They're coming back to exhibitions, and that's both from a visitor point of view, so the audiences, as well as exhibitors and sponsors. And, I'm certainly saying it's not snapping back to where it was. It's going to take time. It's going to be a gradual recovery. International travel, it's certainly nowhere what it was. Perhaps, it may never go back to what it was. But, hopefully what I will be able to convey through this is optimism, certainly from my part. And I'm sure with my esteemed panelists here that will be something that they will also be conveying. But, getting back to the question that you've posed, I think there is a risk that a lot of organisers are going to go back to exactly how they were before. They're not going to have learnt from some parts the challenges that COVID's faced us. I think, Mr. Ramakrishna, where he talked briefly about digital, embracing digital platforms. Some pivoted, we've all talked about the digital pivot during COVID. What does that look like post-COVID? Some organisers possibly won't embrace that. I think to a degree that will be a mistake. I have a certain view on hybrid, which I'm sure we're going to come on to in a bit more detail throughout this session. But I feel that exhibitions on the large part are going to go back to how they were. There are certainly going to be areas that organisers have invested in, but I think the one bit, and this is a big takeaway and a big reason to be very optimistic, is COVID's actually shown the importance of the face-to-face medium and the need to get back in front of customers and as well as to seek out new customers. So I think that people are, as I said at the beginning, people are going to vote with their feet. They're going to get back to exhibitions and it's going to cement their importance in people's marketing mix.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the understanding of the importance of exhibitions. I actually had a meeting earlier this week with the director of JETRO in Hong Kong. JETRO is the Japanese external trade organisation that I'm sure you've got representatives where you are that you know as well. Anyway, he showed me a graph. He was talking about the pearl industry. Japan has an enormous industry, of pearls, and 85% of them are exported to Hong Kong. And he showed me the graph of when they are exported. There's 4 big peaks in the year, and they all coincide with the various jewellery shows that happen here in Hong Kong. And he showed me the figures for 2020, and it was a completely flat line. And he said, look, we don't have trade shows to go and visit, so therefore nobody's buying pearls. Nobody buys pearls on the internet. Nobody buys them virtually without looking at them. It's an expensive product that's got to be seen. That's quite an extreme example. But I think there are probably examples in most of our industries where, we do need face-to-face and people are realising that. So I'm like you, I think, hopeful that the second half of the decade is going to see a real boom where this demand and global trade, suddenly becomes at the forefront of things and we move forward quite quickly. In terms of my own thoughts on the new normal, I like what you said just now about there being a risk that people don't change. I think it's going to be one of those things fundamentally. When you walk into an exhibition hall, will it look massively different? Probably not. It will probably look, roughly what it always has been. And that's a good thing. And that's what people like. But underneath that, I think that particularly as we're seeing more and more younger people, trade show buyers, they want an experience. They are used to shopping on Amazon, where if they look at certain things, other things connected with it get recommended. They're used to having all of the information about a product, about how it's made, about where it's come from, about its carbon footprint, etc., before them. And so that when they go to the shop to buy it, they've already done their homework and they've already got that information. I think we're going to see exactly the same demand from trade shows. People want technology to tell, to be able to guide them in what they're looking at, so that they can see, the new products. They can find out about, some of the launches, some of the kind of the artisan produce that they perhaps didn't know about. But then equally, I think once they've done that homework and they walk into the trade show floor, they don't want to be dictated to. They don't want a schedule of, I've got to be here at this time and there at that time. I'm sure we've all done that, running around Messe Dusseldorf, but I've got 15 minutes to meet, Mr. Hans, and he's gone to lunch, and I'm back on the travelator to the other side of it. So that doesn't work, and people actually don't want that. And so I think the new normal is really going to be us as organisers understanding what the buyers want. And I say buyer because I think that is absolutely the priority. Very often we get carried away with the exhibitor because they're the ones that are giving us the money. But actually, it's if we get the buyers, we please the buyers, they're going to come, and the exhibitors will support us because that's their kind of their important clients. So we've kind of put this into 3 blocks, and the first of those blocks was around what the audience needs. Perhaps we'll go back to the Indian Mobile Congress, because I suspect that there's a lot of content. There's a lot of, because it's still a fast-moving, evolving. People need to know about the latest about whatever 5G or whatever. Is there a 6G? Is there a 6G coming? Is that next?
Yeah, there are already standards getting on 6G. You'll see.
Now, it looks like we've lost Stuart there. One of the reasons, more importantly, reinforces the need to get back face to face.
Physical, yeah.
Here we are.
For some reason, I just got kicked out. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, let's carry on as though nothing happened. I was asking Mr. Ramakrishnan, what's the, in terms of the content, in terms of the audience needs, what do you think the new normal will be for your shows?
Okay. I think pretty much we are sure that hybrid is going to kick off, and it's going to come up in a very different form. But considering India Mobile Congress, which is very heavy content driven and thought leadership driven, for us, cross-border challenges are going to exist, and we have to work around those cross-border challenges. Either it can be travel, it can be login at a different time zones, it can be other elements, exhibitors coming from various countries, and you have these quarantine periods, and those we have to look into those aspects, and these cross-border challenges are going to hit on, and we have to work on those strategies. Very important to have the audience and the sponsors engagement. That is number one, Stuart. The other area is, let's think we have a split of audience going forward where 30-40% is live on the exhibition ground, and there is a 70% live which we are captured from the remote parts. And for them, if as a sponsor, as a USP, I want to give product demos and all, the platforms needs to evolve in a very different form, which is the key component of technology shows like us, where product launches, product demos are the key aspect, and we don't have a good form right now to showcase that. I think that is the need of the industry for us, at least. Other is, there's a very big shift in the priorities of the deliverables. Is it the same deliverables for sponsors we see as is the location of the exhibition booth, the traffic, the movement, or it is something else which is going to evolve. I think there is a shift in the deliverables which we map out for the sponsors. I think this is going to be key, one aspect of how the industry has to look out for. Other, of course, the usual patterns which we are generate now is the client networkings, the kind of analytics behind it, the end users engagement. But at some form in future, we will have the virtual audience and we'll have a online, we have a on the site audience. Is the interaction possible between these two audience? I think this is one more aspect we will see which is coming up. There's an audience out there in the in a physical form out there, and there's an audience which is virtual. Now, how does this interactions happen during those networks? This needs to evolve, and these are the places where we have to look for. The other is automation part, which will come up in a big way because of the health restrictions, because of on the physical venues, there will be a lot of automations which will come up, either touchless points or whatever it might be. I think those changes needs to reflect in the exhibitions ground. I think there are some solutions out there, but I think that the drastic usage of those solutions will be seen going forward. Of course, ROI, at the end, it's ROI for you. You feel users are the first point where we have to figure out. For us, sometimes sponsors is the key ROI element. We have to figure out what our sponsors got by all putting in so many millions of dollars into this slot in our exhibition. I think these are the key things which we take care. We want to work around in IMC. I think those are the deliverables which we want to make sure we are giving some kind of an answers to our sponsors and the users.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. I have my own views on product demos, etc. But I'll ask Ashley to come in here now and talk about, you know, what do you think about the kind of the experience in the new normal?
I think, again, I mean, you touched on this show briefly. You know, when people are going to return to exhibitions, to talk for our exhibitions in terms of how we're approaching, largely speaking, they're going to look very similar. But it's about the thoughts, the process, and the underpinnings that a lot more thought has gone into it. That how we're building the narration and curating, say, for example, workshops. You know, spending a bit more time understanding actually the needs of our audiences. And in reality, you know, like with a lot of the changes that hopefully exhibition organisers have been making to their events, it's stuff that we should have been doing all along, but perhaps have not invested enough time to do. And, you know, and Mr. Karishma mentioned about ROI, which I'll touch on very briefly again. It's a lot of getting back to basics and, you know, doing things like having steering committees with your industry, meeting with stakeholders, understanding the true needs of whether it's government, whether it's the end users, as well as your customers, and actually curating the event with the typical components, the exhibition stands, the you know, if it's live product demonstrations, if it's workshops or seminars or conference programs, to ensure that we're actually really catering for the needs of people. Stuart, you also mentioned about, you know, a younger audience. I think you're absolutely right. And it's not just a younger audience. I mean, I'm not that young, but, you know, we're used to going online shopping. It's actually thinking about what is the process, because the process does start before going on site. I mean, you mentioned about pearls, and a lot of exhibitions, you're selling very, very, very expensive products. I'll take our oil and gas event, where some products, you know, the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. Now, you're not going to jump online and order these things online, or very, very unlikely. But there is certainly a shortlisting process that you want your customers to go through, your audience, prior to going on site. And, you know, there's a lot of information that we collate as organisers that we need to share with our audience in advance. You know, the traditional show catalogues, we spend a huge amount of time collating that information, but how can we actually digitalize that information, make it more searchable, so that actually when people register for events, we're perhaps being more suggestive about the customers that they can meet with that is better meeting their needs, potentially upselling the number of exhibitors they can be going to. So ultimately, that's going to also benefit not only the prospective visitors to an event, but those that are attending. I also touched on very briefly about return on investment. Again, it's really a case of coming back to basics. I remember over 2 decades ago when I got into the industry, and I was a little bit wet behind the ear and a lot younger, but the kind of my introduction to the industry was get out in front of your customers. We weren't so reliant on email, the phone. It was getting out and seeing the whites of your eyes, the whites of the eyes of your customers, listening to your customers, understanding their needs, and actually matching their objectives and their needs as an organization to the benefits that we offer as an exhibition organizer and our events. And I feel sometimes we've been the victim of our own success, that we've actually not spent enough time to that. I think what you're also going to find is a lot of these mega events, the largest events in the world, they're possibly never going to look the same again. And I don't think that's perhaps a bad thing. And what I mean by that is we want to get to a point where we are a more sustainable industry, where customers are achieving that return on investment. There's a less churn rate of clients, and retention's better, because ultimately, if our customers are happier, it's very likely our visitors are also happier, which is going to correlate to better events in the long term. So it's lots of big points I put out there, Stuart. I hope in some way I've answered the question that you asked.
Yeah, you'll have seen me doing a lot of nodding throughout both of those answers, because I think you're absolutely right. The curation of events is vital to all of this, as is listening to our customers. That's both our visitors and our exhibitors. I mean, I don't know if there are organisers out there that are not running advisory committees or steering committees. Then you're doing it wrong. You have to listen to your customers, and that is one of the best ways of doing it. So I would urge people to go back and ask their customers what they want, because I think if you're not listening to your customers all the time, you very quickly start to make the wrong decisions and start to put effort on things where they don't want it. You're putting all this effort and all this resource behind stuff that actually they don't care about. I wanted to come back to one of the things which I was interested in. Mr. Ramkrishna mentioned product demonstrations in the whole scheme of the sort of the hybrid thing. I mean, my view is that people are happy to consume content. They're happy to build knowledge and attend seminars. But when it comes to seeing a product or a product demonstration, it isn't. They're not, in my experience anyway. I've never seen one that was done terribly well or was terribly useful. I recall a couple of examples. I know that Infocom, when they couldn't hold it in Las Vegas at the beginning of this year, they went fully virtual. And the comments from most of the people that I knew that looked at it said, "Well, look. I mean, it was a flashy, all pizzazz advert for the latest, mobile phone, the latest Samsung or Nokia, whatever it would be. But actually, I could watch those on YouTube. So it didn't provide me with any value." Equally, product demonstrations. We saw one of the biggest trade shows in the world, the Canton Fair, when that went virtual. There was an example of somebody who was doing some building materials, I think it was, and they had a product demonstration of a guy, showing how the product worked and what you could do with it. And they had an audience of 250,000 people watching this product demonstration, which, of course, they were absolutely delighted about, until a month later, when the sales director said, "Great, you had all those people look at it. How many have we sold?" And the answer came back, "Well, we had 3 inquiries and none of them converted." So, that's a waste of everybody's time. And we don't kind of want to be doing that. So yeah, we need to be doing hybrids, and we need to be giving our customers much more information. But I'm not sure, going back to your point about how do we get a physical audience and a virtual audience together to engage, my personal belief is it is impossible. And I think what we're going to end up with when we talk about this hybrid model, for me, the direction that I'm looking at anyway, is that hybrid will be us doing virtual things, maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year to connect with our audience, to tell them more information about what's happening. But equally, this will be the build up to the show. It will all be, at the end of it, it's all one big advert and hey, guess what? You've got to be in Hong Kong at this date, at this time to be part of the live experience. That's so the virtual will augment the physical, but they won't be happening at the same time. We won't have people sort of waving at machines. Again, I've seen it. I've seen people try it. There was a big food show in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago. I say a big food show, a much smaller food show than would normally be because people can't travel at the moment. But there was one international pavilion where they set up laptops with people, sort of overseas, sat there ready to talk to customers. Well, people who are walking around a trade show, they don't want to sort of, stop and peer into a laptop and speak to somebody. It's alien. It doesn't seem to work at all. So yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that that's the answer. I think we started talking about data, and I think that data is crucial. I mean, we all heard that data is the new oil and all of that stuff. Are there things that we're doing with our various trade shows, to harness that data and to make sure that it's useful to our customers? I'll keep going in order because otherwise I'll mess it up. But unless Ashley jump in if you've got something important to say. But I'll go back to Mr. Ramkrishna. What are you doing in terms of data? Are you is it the same way that you've always done it? Lots of information on Excel spreadsheets, or are you sort of being very funky and doing clever things?
We try to do. There is always a request from our customers also to get data in various forms for them to visualize because there's no physical presence and no ROI. So they want to deliver some ROI in form of a data. And data, I'm pretty sure we have huge data right now. We run a lot of analytics over that. But how useful it is, we are still missing. Because let's think, I have the touch points where we capture this data on the net itself or on the platform. There is a whole list. Even to run my analytics, I have to give 10, 15, 20 fields. And no one has time for that, or neither they are interested in filling those data. I think this is a challenge. Even though we have analytics background on the backside of the platforms, I don't think we are getting the right data out there, what our customer needs. Even we have matchmaking tools, which can probably give the right match. Again, do the customer, does the user have time and this thing to go and connect? This is the problem which we have currently in the virtual world. Because hardly half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours engagement, not more than that. In this 1-2 hours, he will look at some good conference content and then he wants to move on. I think if that's the case, how relevant is the data is a big question, and how much it will support. Of course, there are several facilities on which we can mine the data on. But I think how relevant is the data is a big question, even we are trying to address. As you said, you have 250,000 viewers for those product and 3 inquiries and no converts. I think this is the issue which we have right now, the data. The other issue is now this is the data analytics and the capture part of it. But at the same time, we have streaming issues. You logged out, we logged out, we have one person couldn't log in. How do then there are different backdrops, different kind of environment, different time zones, this streaming, the bandwidth requirements, they're going to be huge change in the streaming because of the way interactions will happen on this platform future. I think there is one more big element over there is the bandwidth requirements and how do we factor in this whole context. That is other. And the platform itself, how dynamically they will adjust the bandwidth to the environment is what it needs to be worked out. I think people are working on it. So the dynamic allocation of the bandwidth and how it shifts between various elements within the venue on a virtual and then in a hybrid is what the things are going to evolve on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bandwidth issues. I thought you were gonna solve all our problems with 6G, but perhaps we're not quite there yet. Ashley, you mentioned before. I mean, oil and gas. I used to work for Diversified, and they've got the Australian Oil and Gas Show, and I know the value of some of those contacts. If you're a purchasing manager of one of the big petrol companies, everybody wants to be your best friend. How do you kind of preserve the integrity of your data, but also make sure that you're kind of, maximizing the connections between, your important exhibitors and those important buyers?
Really good question, Stuart. I think in terms of data is, I personally can't stress the importance of it. And, it's been said by many people before that data is the backbone of a good exhibition organizer. And I believe that is very much the case and probably more important than it ever has been. The way we can acquire, build, and understand our data has changed tremendously in the last sort of decade in particular. And sort of expand upon that point a little bit further. I mean, if I address in terms of us building the data, go back sort of 20, 30 years, the way we would build our data is typically by either buying data lists or the visitors data, people that attend your event or they register for your event. You'd have the attendees and you'd have the pre-reg non-attendees, for example. That's changed tremendously because we're bringing data in from all over the place. Social media presence, we've got the website presence, we've got on-site attendance. Whatever outlet we have, there is an opportunity to gain data. I think there is less reliance to go out there and buy data. There is definitely the need to build data as well, because, assuming the whole industry is coming to your event, any organizer that thinks that would be utterly foolish, because I think, our experience of when we've looked at digital and speaking to counterparts in the industry, something that, events such as this, but sort of more industry focused on exhibitions, is what it has shown is it's bringing people to events such as this that actually never go to exhibitions. So there is a misconnect. Events aren't offering something, or we're not communicating to these people in the right way. In terms of data mining, understanding what data we've got, looking at an Excel spreadsheet, it's not going to tell us anything. You need professionals that know how to mine that data and actually how to look at the business intelligence off the back of that. What is that data telling us? Where is the growth from events? And I think there's it's not all about coming back to visitors. It's from a holistic point of view to an exhibition business. Where is there growth? Where can an exhibition grow? Where can we launch into new markets or new verticals? But also looking at where is the misconnect. Again, coming back to the traditional areas, you've got 50%, for example, people register don't turn up. What are we doing to understand why those people aren't coming to the event? Those that come to our event, how are we using that data going forward? We all talk about hybrid and what that looks like, and I've got my own personal views about that. And I think you described it quite well in terms of my belief on it, Stuart, that it's about interaction with audiences, staying engaged with audiences, on a 12-month cycle. We don't just say to them, hello on site, and we've got a big banner that says, see you next year, and that's the next time we talk to them. That's not the way to go forward. But data is going to become more important, that we're constantly cleaning that throughout the year. We're building on it, but we're understanding that data, and that data is telling us what our visitors want. But we're also, probably the most important bit, is we're humanizing that data, that we are coming to assumptions, but we are validating that through things like steering committees, advisory panels, and we are actually humanizing that data.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is a whole level of different skills that we haven't traditionally had in our exhibition industry. I mean, if you're going to have a very sophisticated marketing campaign that targets people based on what they've looked at, or based on, if they came today, or, trying to get them to come back tomorrow, or etc., then you're going to need people with those data analytic skills. Which are in much demand at the moment. So how are we going to stand up to that challenge? Ashley, I'll stay with you because I know that you had some thoughts on this. But given I suppose the amount of people that we know sadly have left the industry over the last 18 months, how are we going to find and upskill the talent or recruit the talent into our industry that we need to give the kind of experience that we're talking about?
Yeah, and I think it's a big challenge for our industry going forward, because there's no doubt that we've lost a lot of hugely talented people from the industry. And in terms of attracting the new generation, the future talent of our industry, is something that we need to be looking at carefully. In terms of digitalizations, events, we even before COVID, we use digital solutions to market our events to a massive degree. But as organisers, and I feel one of the most important functions of a successful exhibition business is a high performing marketing team. And I think we've got to better equip our marketing teams with people that really understand the technologies. Now, that's looking at the tech space. And, you and I, when we had the discussion the other day, I said, going to the likes of LinkedIn, Google, and you're right, those people command a high premium. But if we need to go and get those people, the right talent, and I'm not saying we're all going to have marketing teams full of people from Google, Microsoft, and so forth, but at a strategic level within an organization, we need people that really understand that subject matter to its fullest, because I don't believe that we, in some cases, are truly unlocking the true potential of harnessing technology within events. And I think for that, for us in the industry, that offers unparalleled opportunity for us, positive growth. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to is, from a recruitment point of view, looking outside our industry. We're very good at networking within our industry. And there's a lot of people that stay here in our industry for a very long time. And we need that to stay, because there's a lot of very talented people. But we need to open our eyes and look around at other industries and learn from them, but also try and attack talent from them.
Now, the perception for those of us outside of India is that you don't have these problems, Mr. Ramakrishna, because, for us, we think of India and we think of loads of, cool young tech guys who've got all the skills, they affordable salaries, everything's great. Tell us that you've got it sorted, that we should all move to India and run events.
No, I did do problems. I did face problems when the shift happened. And the shift was, as rightly said by Ashley, one is good marketing people. I think number one. Why we need marketing is we need a lot of elements are now put, whether it's a reach through the social media, it's handling the content on the virtual platform. There's good talent which is required around that, number one. Number two is, earlier I used to sell exhibition spaces, location, booth size, booth. Now it's all content for me. So there is a shift in the salesperson's profile also. He need to understand what a 5G is, what a 6G is, whether we are talking of industry IoT in that subject, then how it correlates, what kind of speakers we required, what did he sells to the sponsor. I think it's an entirely big shift in the sales team. This is number two we are seeing. Number three is this: how do we handle in this hybrid environment? So, whole technology point of view, you need to have a core person who understands that, and that is very critical nowadays. You fail in the technology side of it, the platform side of it, I think half the audience is gone for you, and there is a bad repercussion because those are all remote audience, and those audience can be anywhere on the social media telling about your conference, talking about it. So I think technology point of view, handling the platform, handling the right way to handle the platform is one more area we require some course. I think these are the three critical areas I still consider within my teams and colleagues. We try to cultivate that skills. I think that's very important for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I began my career in media sales, and I think we still are in media sales. And okay, we're not selling magazine pages, but it's about the audience. So it's having those marketing skills. Right, I can't believe this, but our time is almost over already. I think we've got only a couple of minutes left before we need to move on and let the next people come up onto the stage. So I wanted to ask you both in just sort of summing up. If organisers had to focus just on the thing that's going to make the biggest difference to their shows, what do you think it would be? Over the next sort of couple of years, what are the things that okay, you can't do everything. We appreciate that, but if there's one or two things that you absolutely have to get right because these are critical to you being successful in the future, what do you think those one or two things would be? Ashley, I'll ask you first.
It's going to possibly sound like a little bit of a cliche, but I'll try and avoid
We're expecting a cliche. That's all right.
Yes, it's people. It's people not only in the broader sense, but more importantly, it's people within the business. It's the employees of an exhibition organising company. I mean, the last 18 months have been brutal to our industry. It's been brutal to people. It's affected us all very much in the same way, some more than others. But I think we need to double down. We need to invest in people. I talked a moment ago about bringing people from outside the industry, but we also need to upscale our talent and huge amount of talent within the industry. We need to be brave, be a lot more entrepreneurial, and I think there's a lot of entrepreneurship in our industry. And we need to push the envelope a lot more than we have in the past, and sort of reignite that passion where it might have diminished in more recent times.
Yeah, agree. Definitely people. And Mr. Ramkrishna, what would be your kind of advice to organisers?
Yeah, I think production level of this content should be improved a lot. We don't have kind of feel and good factor right now on the production level of the content. I think with the hybrid environment or wherever it is, I think probably the use cases are different for different kind of events. But production level, the audio and video will go for a big shift. I think this is where you will see a big shift. Of course, then is integrating several elements. We have been like ourselves. We are trying to use small tools to integrate within our platforms and within our environment so that we give more as you said, data mining or data process for the clients, which makes us easy on the other side for us not to deep dive into so many other activities. Like video analytics will be a big go factor hereafter. We have so many hours, 3 days, 4 days, 50, 60 sessions, 50 hours, 60 hours content. And we want to deep dive to get the data out of it and make certain elements which are visible. I think video analytics is going to be a big factor in this. I think going forward, you see a lot of things coming out there.
Okay, and I'm going to draw both of you all together. Ashley, you gave us people, and Mr. Ramkrishna, you gave us production value. I think event experience, which combines both of those two elements. We have to make sure that people want to come to our shows, that it's a great experience, that it's fun, that they enjoy it, that they meet the people that they want to see and they see the products they want to see. So I would say, bringing all of that together, that's wonderful. Gentlemen, we are out of time. It's been a pleasure speaking with both of you. I hope I've moderated okay, given the 30 seconds notice that I had before we did it. And I hope to see both of you on a trade show floor somewhere fairly soon.
Sure.
Thank you, Stuart.
Good. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Take care, gents.
Have a good afternoon.